My name is Inga Cotton. I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms, and these are Charter Moms Chats. And I'm so excited that it is enrollment season again because it gives us an opportunity to share about some of our favorite schools and check in with school leaders about what they're doing to tell their story to families and get families thinking about the coming school year and how to apply. So today we're talking about Anne Frank Inspire Academy, and we have the assistant superintendent Johnston with us. And he's a veteran of Charter Moms Chats. He's been on the show to talk about inquiry-based learning and as they've like added another campus. And we shared the enrollment guide blog post, which is newly updated. So you can find it at sachartermoms.com. It's also linked in the description of this video. So Justin, thank you for joining me again on Charter Moms Chats.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you having us. Feels like it's been a while, but I saw you in DC this summer, and looking forward to seeing you next week at the conference. So.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. That was a great experience. I was so proud. For any folks who wonder what we're talking about, so the annual the annual Charter Schools Conference, the national conference, was in DC in June, and I saw on the program that Anne Frank Inspire Academy was presenting a session, and I was like, oh, I've got to see this. So my assistant and I get there, and the room is packed. It's a giant room, and it's absolutely packed. And they were, I think y'all ran out of materials to give
we
folks.
did.
I mean, it was,
we were anticipating somewhere about 150 to 160, and we think there ended up being about 170, 180 in there at some point in time. So it was a great experience. We had a whole lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, I was running a little bit late getting there. So by the time I got there were like paper airplanes flying across the room, and everyone was out of their seats, and it was just this like controlled chaos. But I'm sure that made an impression on everybody who was there. And hopefully they took that back home with them. These ideas about inquiry-based learning and how it gets students motivated, because it definitely got these educators up off their feet and asking questions and collaborating and just having a really good time.
Yeah, we're really excited. On September 28th, we're actually going to turn around and do a similar type presentation for our parents because it is such a unique model that we incorporate, right? And we want to be clear about it. It's something that we build, right? So we don't start with what we showed in DC or what parents are going to walk into. We build up to that model, but we're excited about being able to get parents to come in, go through the experience, and actually know what it is we want for their kids' education to actually look like. We have the vision of reimagining and transforming global education or global learning, right? And so that in itself is a lofty vision for us to have. And a lot of times it gets confusing in people's head of what does that actually look like. We're excited. September 28th, we're going to be able to show our families what it looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like. And then for any prospective parents, right, this is something that we're hoping to start to incorporate. And when I say hoping, we're in the plans. I guess I should use a more definitive term, but we're in the plans of ensuring that as new families start to come in the door, right, like we're able to show them what this experience is going to actually be for their kids while they're there on campus.
Yeah. Well, I got excited talking about the workshop in DC, but I guess let's for maybe folks who aren't familiar with what is Anne Frank Inspire Academy, and you mentioned the vision of reimagine global education, but can you talk more about like the mission and like the motto, like belong, find joy, be great?
Yeah, so we just actually went through a strategic planning district wide, and so our mission, we didn't change it. We just kind of refined it to kind of really ensure that it encapsulates really who we are all the way through. And so our mission right now is to increase the capacity of learning by inspiring every student to belong, find joy, and be great. So we took the imperatives that were outside of our mission and we brought them in because ultimately those three things, right? We're increasing that capacity of learning for a purpose. The purpose is so that as individuals, students can belong, they can find joy, and they can become great. We talk about those three things, but we really try to live them. And so when we talk about belong is a part of coming together for a common mission, common vision. And so again, ours is to transform and reimagine education. I'm going to try. I had a meeting today with the Charter Association, and so I'm going to try to change my terminology just a little bit. But we're real big into school option, right? And so we want for there to be options for families. And so when we talk about the belong side of it, belonging is a choice. It's something that we choose to do, and we do that by living life together. It's not something that can be done in isolation. And so if you're a family that's looking for your kid to come in and to work collaboratively with people, if you're looking for a relationship with staff members, if you're looking to be able to have communications one-on-one with administration, right? If you're looking for that connectivity, it is something that we really pride ourselves on. Doesn't mean that we always give everybody the answers that they want to hear or that they like, but it means that we're going to do it together. So we're going to have joy together. We're going to disagree together. But ultimately, by living life together, we find joy. And, joy is a choice that happens throughout the process of learning. It's also throughout the process of life that is going to be there. So we want for students to realize that even during valleys, there can be joy, right? And we talk to them all the time about, hey, where do we find joy inside of difficult and challenging times? And then not robbing our joy. I think right now, and this is more of a personal opinion, but society-wise, we have good things that happen and we feel bad about having good things that happen, right? And so allowing for joy to really exist. And then greatness is that temporary state, right? And we want to be clear about that. We don't become great and stay great. We hit greatness and then we leave greatness, and then we've got to work our way back up to it again, right? We've all had moments of greatness, and we've all had moments where we haven't been so great. And what we want to know is those are moments, but those are moments that are best lived together. And it brings us back into that full circle of back to that belong piece, right? If I'm being great and I'm doing it in isolation, it doesn't bring that same joy as what happens when I'm doing greatness together and belonging. And so we feel like it's all intertwined. It's not a secular process, but it is a process in which is not unique to a specific culture or to a specific individual. It's something that all humans go through, and we get to do it together.
Yeah, well, I think it's so important to say it out loud, like or like have those, moments where you strategize and refine, but and then, come up with, figure out what the purpose is and say it out loud repeatedly so that everyone's on the same page. And, because if you don't have a goal, you don't know where you're going. And plus what's great is that you guys are explicit about, what the goal is. And so then, families who are doing their research, they can, listen and think, hey, does that click with me? Does that resonate? Is that the kind of school I'm looking for? And like you said, it gives people options. And, Anne Frank is very different from what people may think of a typical school being. And that's why, like going on a school tour is so important, going to, a workshop to learn about inquiry. And actually I wanted you to, like, I know that, like, you wrote a guest post that's on our site. It's actually linked in the enrollment guide that, talks about inquiry-based learning and, like, how families can apply it at home. But I was wondering if and I can put the graphic up on the screen. Can you talk to folks about how inquiry-based learning works and kind of walk through, like, what are some of the things you did at that workshop in DC that got everybody at the Charter Schools Conference on their feet?
Yeah. So, and that's one of the things that's really unique about our organization, right? Everybody talks about mission and vision. This is the first organization that I can truly say we live it day in, day out, right? And it starts at the top with our superintendent, and it goes all the way down into our students. And so it's great to be able to see that. And it's led by this inquiry learning, right? And we call it an inquiry pedagogy, but really it's just the natural way of learning. And that's what we talk about inside the blog post quite a bit. And so what we've done is we've narrowed everything down to what is it that most families want, right? And at the end of the day, we want to communicate with families what students know, what students do, and then ultimately, what is it that a student's becoming, right? And I can tell you as a parent, that last question is, what is it that my son's becoming is the huge piece to me, right? And so he may have walked in kindergarten knowing his letters, but is he becoming a reader? Right? Is he doing the next thing that he needs to do? What is that growth process actually looking like? And so we do that through two ways of grading. We follow the traditional state way of grading through numerical numbers, but we also use standards-based grading as well, to where we're communicating with families along those lines. And then each 9 weeks, we have a student-led conference where we bring parents in to sit down and to have 30-minute to an hour conversations with their children about what is it that they know, what is it that they're doing, and what is it they're becoming. And we want for those to really be student-led, hence the name student-led conferences. But we want them to be student-led from the standpoint of we want parents just to listen, right? And so we provide parents with a list of questions if they need to prod deeper, but we really want them to engage in that process. The way we build that knowledge and the doing piece and the becoming piece is we activate knowledge, we identify questions, explore, and then where learning really takes place is that create, reflect, and share, right? And so we want to create, reflect, and share multiple different times. And so the presentation that you're talking about, Inga, was a success for one reason and one reason only. It's because Top Gun came out again this summer, and we just told the song and we played the song, and there was no way we were going to lose once we played the song. It was just going to happen, right? And so we built paper airplanes with Top Gun. It's over. It was a wrap, right? But that was the whole plan. But no, we took educators through the process of throwing an aircraft at this object, right? So they used our poster here as a target, and then they were to create an aircraft to throw at the target. And I'm not, because we have maybe a couple of parents that are watching, so I'm not going to go through the whole process of what happens, but we gave them opportunities to refine that aircraft multiple different times throughout. But the whole thing was we were also reviewing the know, do, become, the activate knowledge, the create, the reflect, the share, right? We were taking them through the process of reflecting with each other, sharing with each other, recreating, and continuing that process. And so what they were able to see is not only did they learn from themselves, but they learned from others. Not only did they learn from others inside of their groups, they learned from other groups. And it's just a microcosm of what can happen when learning becomes embedded throughout, right? The final piece that you see is how we go about doing it. And we do it through a teacher-led section, we do it through a student-led section, and then we do it through a debriefing. That student-led section is larger for a couple of different reasons. One, we want to signify that the time we spend is going to be more student-led than teacher-led. So we want to be clear right up front. If you're looking for your kid to come home and do hours of homework, if you're looking for them to sit in rows and listen to teachers, if you're looking for lectures, we're not you, right? And that's not a knock. And again, that's why we believe in school option, is because we believe parents should have the option of what they want to fit for their kid. If you're looking for a place where students are going to learn together, where they're going to explore together, where they're going to disagree from time to time, where they're going to learn how to manage, and we like to say it this way, reach self-mastery through self-management, then we're a place to where kids can learn the mistakes they make as a freshman in college. They can learn to make those mistakes in 5th and 6th grade instead, and then they can grow from it so that when they're a freshman or sophomore in high school, they're becoming more mature in what it is that they're doing. The last thing on this document is a piece that we feel like is left out of education in a lot of different senses, and that's taking time to actually debrief the experience. What just happened? What is it that we just got finished going through, right? So when we get off of this interview today, I'm going to go back and say, well, what happened? Did I answer the questions that were asked? Right? Did I talk too much? Did I come across right the way that I wanted to cross? Did I say the things I wanted to say? But that's the reflection piece that we're going to do internally. You're going to do it with you, right? We may do it together. We may see each other over next week and say, hey, I liked how you said that. I appreciate that question. I like how all those things tied back. So that debriefing piece is where we actually process our knowledge and then we go forward. I stress that because a lot of times in education, it's about completing the task, where sometimes if we would stop an incomplete task and go through the processes of what it is that we're learning through that, it's more important than actually completing the task to the fullest, right? And there's different beliefs on that, but that is our belief, is that the actual debriefing of the experience is the key place that learning is taking place. So this document takes a very complex system that we go through in learning. It makes it simple because when I come back and say, what is learning? What is inquiry learning? It's a natural way of learning that is very simple in definition. but very complex in the process of execution.
Yeah, like I think I'm really glad that you shared this graphic so we could share it with our audience because I think that like I think when people like observe like a classroom at and they don't even look like classrooms, right? Like when people observe like student and teacher getting together at Anne Frank, like it looks so different from what people expect to see in a classroom. And I think they wonder like, what is there any structure at all? But there really
Yeah.
is a structure to inquiry-based learning, and you can see it here. And I saw it in action at the workshop because like there were moments of just this like just outpourings of energy and noise, and people talking over each other saying no, build it this way, throw it again, and then everyone kind of come together. And I guess I don't want to give away too much, but like like people would kind of report back like who threw it the farthest, and there was a lot of competition among the groups, right? And
Yeah.
everyone was really excited to share.
And what you heard a ton of was laughter, right? You heard a
Yeah.
ton of joy, right? You saw people smiling, you saw people enjoying it, right? And then what I loved about, like, I wasn't expecting it, but what I loved more than anything was there was frustration. There were people that were actually upset because the result wasn't what they wanted it to be, right? And so, like, it was great to actually see the true emotions of learning take place, right? Because all of those things are going to happen inside the process of learning. And how do I learn to handle my frustrations? And how do I deal with those, right? How do I deal when somebody else is having more success than what I'm having? And so it's the beauty of the model. And then what we're able to do with the model is our elementary looks different than what our middle school looks, and then our middle school looks different than what our high school, because ultimately we really want for that senior level student to be in charge of this, to be guiding a large part of what they're doing at school should be led from them, right? But what do we know? We know that a first grade student isn't going to be there quite yet. And so where we differ from a lot of project-based schools or a lot of schools where people don't feel like their structure is, we do have a strong phonemic awareness. We are really stressing the fundamentals of reading. We're working with creative math in order to build numerical fluency and numerical sense. And so it's important for us at the elementary level to make sure that we build foundational skills that allow for that knowledge to continue to grow. Not everything can be just discovered. It can't all be discovery learning. I guess it could be, but it's going to take more time than what we have to be able to do that piece. And so there has to be the fundamental and the balance. And that's where, when you go back to this outer ring, we want for our parents to challenge. Are we making sure that students know it? Are we making sure that students can do it? And then ultimately, are we ensuring that students are becoming it? Because if a student doesn't walk out of second grade knowing how to read, then we've got work to do for the rest of that student's educational career, right? And so that's a key piece of it, is we want for students to leave second grade as a reader. And so we want to communicate that to our kinder and first parents.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good segue, because I've mentioned several times that like the campus has a non-traditional look to it, right? From like the treehouse with the slide, to there's areas that look like more like a commons at a university library. I guess I wondered, can you talk more about the facilities like at the Bandera Rd campus and the Northwest Military campus, and kind of how that supports the flexibility in how students learn?
Yeah, so we were really excited last year that we were able to open up Northwest Military, and it is there at the JCC on Northwest Military, hence the name Northwest Military in Frank. But we're excited about that side of it. And so while the building itself does have hallways and more traditional rooms, right, we've taken doors off of the walls and we've created spaces to where kids are moving through stations, to where we are using intentional grouping and purposeful grouping to ensure that we're attacking kids' skills where they need to be. We're making sure that we place students that are on grade level and above grade level together. And so we take more of an approach to where K1-2 is learning to read, and 3-4-5 is reading to learn. And so we may have first graders that come in already knowing how to read. Well, they may be working with some second graders, reading, doing some books clubs, right? And then we may have some second graders that have gone through some difficult times, or maybe are just getting to the point to where they're learning some of their letter sounds, that are going to be still working on that side of it, right? And the deal is, we're able to create that because of our imperatives of belong, find joy, and be great, without stigmatizing anybody, without turning around and saying, hey, you're behind. Here's the fact of the matter. Whoever thinks kids learn to read at the exact same time never had two kids in the same place, right? Like, it doesn't matter what family they came from. It doesn't matter who they are, right? It doesn't matter if they're twins. Most of the time things happen at different paces. And so one of the things that we really want to do is stop that stigmatizing of you got to learn this by this, right? And so I just got finished saying, we need you to know how to read when you walk out of second grade. But if you don't, it doesn't mean we stop trying to teach you how to read. It doesn't mean that we don't stop, but at the same time, we don't keep you from being able to get the experiences that you need to be able to continue to be on grade level. So as a third grader starts to learn how to summarize, well, they can learn how to summarize by listening to a story the same way they can if they read a story. We're hoping, right, or we're preparing for them to be able to do it through reading, but we've got to find strategies to ensure that we're still teaching that skill set of what summarizing is, or what is plot development, right, all the way through. The one thing that I'll say is that while our approach is unique, you'll see pockets of this in every school. And I say that because I want for people to understand that what we do is good pedagogy and it's good instruction. And what we're trying to do is to create a place to where it's not done in pockets, but it's done with intentionality and purpose throughout. And so somewhere, I hope somebody is listening right now and go, well, that just is logical and that just makes sense. And the answer to that question is yes, right? Now, can we do it intentionally, and can we replicate it over and over and over again? And so that is what we're in the process. When we talk about reimagining education, it's not always about coming up with something new. It's about turning around and doing it with intentionality and purpose. And so I'm kind of on a soapbox, so if you'll help me out and get me back.
Yeah, no, I guess you did a really great job explaining like the examples about reading and things. And what I'm thinking is, like, I think maybe where my mind is going is like, well, how does this play out to the high school kids? And right, where like, and I know, like, when we talked before about the guest post about inquiry-based learning, like one of the big challenges with middle school, high school kids is motivation, right? It's like making sure that they're going to work harder if they get to pick the topic, if it's a topic they're interested in. They're going to do their best. And I think one thing I've learned as a parent is, like, maybe I can ask to get it done, or I can say how it's done, but I can't necessarily do both.
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple of quick examples. We had a board meeting this past week on Tuesday, and we had a couple of students come up. A couple of students are in the 9th grade, and they presented at the end of the year last year for our board, and then they came back with what their inquiry is this year. And so this year, what they're wanting to do is to spend the next 4 years creating a podcast for our school, right? And so again, in itself, podcasts are everywhere, right? But as far as a group of freshmen that are doing it for the intentionality and the purpose of spreading the word of the school, talking about how our learning process helps them, bringing in guest speakers, right? So be prepared for an invite, but turning around and really diving into what it is that we're doing inside of our culture is something really special. The other student that presented, I am extremely proud of, and he is a senior. And I will tell you that he is a brilliant young man, one of the smartest kids that I know. But when it comes down to attending Algebra 1, he's a brilliant young man. And so there's other things that he would rather be doing than attend Algebra 1. So what he is presenting to the board is he's in the process right now of developing a telescope that he can be portable from his house, right? So he can set it up at school. But if he wanted to watch it at home, he would be able to watch it at home. But he's building all of the pieces through a 3D model or through our 3D printer, and then also turning around and coding the computer and coding everything to be able to get it done, right? That's about the extent of what I can talk about it. But, so watching him actually find a passion and find something that he loves and then turn around and become engulfed in it, right? To where it's why he wants to come to school. It's what he's showing up to do, right? We have a 4-day-a-week kids on campus right now, with the Friday being optional for families if they need it, and also a way for us to take care of our interventions that need to be done for House Bill 4545. And we have students that are showing up that are wanting to build things on Fridays, that are wanting to come to school on Fridays to continue to work on their inquiries, right? And so those are the things that really are special, because we're not assigning homework, but kids are doing homework because it's meaningful to them. And that's the big difference, right? If a kid sits up and does a podcast and then all of a sudden wakes up one day and realizes all of the different things that they learned about collaboration and sound and videography and lighting and all of the different things that are going to have to go on for that podcast to be successful, right? And for it to continue to improve. It's going to be so much more impactful than turning around and doing another hour of math problems.
Yeah. Well, I think I talk to families, power struggles about a parent saying, okay, son or daughter, you have to get your homework done, and that kind of power struggle, it's bad for family life. And I've talked to families who have, kids who are college age, but they have this very structured environment all through pre-K through 12th grade. They get to college and they're like, now what? Where am I supposed to be? Who's telling me where I'm supposed to be? They're waiting to be told what to do. Or I talk to employers who have, young employees who are they'll do what they're told to do, but they won't problem solve. They won't take initiative. And, that's a problem with how our education system is being run. And that's why, I'm glad that you guys see this as a global scale. It's we need to reimagine education globally, because there are kids who check all the boxes and bring home a report card, but when you ask them, what are you passionate about, or what's a problem that needs solving, they haven't been asked that question before, and they're not sure what to do about it.
Yeah, Inga, I think there's a lot of one of our teachers that moved to Tennessee, she actually texted me yesterday, and she was talking about her daughter, who's in 5th grade, is still having to get used to walking in straight lines and being quiet, right? We talk all the time about kids get out of their cars and go in the restaurants with families or go into the stores, right? You don't walk in a straight line, you don't catch a bubble. Why are we spending time taking away what is natural? And let's teach them how to walk together. Let's teach them how to walk from one spot to another. Let's do that at a young age, right? But not every family wants that. And that's the other piece where we want to be clear, right? If you're expecting for your kid to catch a bubble and walk silently with both hands behind their back, right? Again, there's places for you, and we respect that. And so we run a real big challenge of listening to our families, working with our families, creating a place where people can belong, but also maintaining that we want to hold true to our model, and we want to hold true to what our belief system is. And our belief system is the human mind is one of the most powerful things that ever existed. And we want to do everything that we can to create an environment for it to grow, and not to stifle it. It doesn't mean that there's not structure. One of the cravings of the brain is for there to be patterns and routines. And we talk about the fact that we want for there to be patterns and routines, right? I know when I come on this interview, I know certain things are going to happen. So once I did it twice, I was comfortable. I no longer am nervous to come on to the interview, because I know that you're going to take care of certain things and it's going to be handled in a certain way. So patterns and routines is a big piece. So what I don't want to do is give a misrepresentation that it's just straight chaos. It's not straight chaos. It's the exact opposite of that. It's an intentional, purposeful design between that image that we showed earlier of we're going to go through these steps. So there's moments and times where it's going to be creative and active, and then there's moments and times where it's going to be reflective and silent. And the key is that we do that with intentionality and purpose.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, yeah, I think that's something, it's something I really appreciate. I love my job because I get to see how different schools run things, and there's incredible variety. And then I get to try to communicate that to families, and also encourage families, please do the research. Every year at this time of year, there's some folks who are like, wait a minute, nobody told me that it was like this. I'm like, I hear you. There might not be enough time to tour every school, but no, but things like going to open house nights, going to school tours, like those things are really important. So,
Yeah, I
and
know a lot of people focus on closure rates of tours, right? Like how many people am I getting in and then am I closing those rates, right? Here's the deal. If we're telling our story in the way that we're supposed to tell it, our closing rate's not going to be as high as everybody else because, again, we're not doing things the exact same way as what everybody else is doing. Now, we believe 100% in what we're doing, and we're going to stay committed to that side of it. But we also need for families to understand we're not looking for a particular type of student. You don't have to be an A student. You don't have to be an F student. We're not designed for a specific performance. What we're designed for is a specific mindset, which is you want to get better, you want to grow, you want to learn about yourself, you want to learn about others, you want to learn what it means to live in a world and live in a place. And again, it's not cliche for us because I'm fixing to say it again, where you belong, you find joy, and you become great, right? When you want to do those things, we're that place that's going to help you figure that out.
yeah, yeah. Well, gosh, I feel like there's so much to talk about, like the Inspire Awards, or like the Inquiry to Impact, like the Dream Week event that's coming up. And I know y'all do like the summer experience. So I feel like there's so much to talk about. I know that those things are covered in the blog post. Are there any one of those that you want to kind of highlight here during the interview?
Yeah, I would say, I know we have Dream Week, we have the Inspire Awards. One of the reasons that we do that is that we want to show our families, we want to show our community that although, one of the hardest parts about a charter school is building community, right? You've got to turn around. So, we have athletics and we have the events, right? We try to have the family nights and different things, but really getting it to where communities are built. It's a little bit different when you say one of the ISD's names and it has a sense of community that's just naturally built into it, right? We have to be purposeful about why we do what we do. And so those events, we focus on those events, right? We have the big give starting tonight in about an hour and a half, right? We do those things because we want to build community inside, but we also want to give back to our community. We do Inspire Awards inside of our district, right? And we recognize individuals that have been great leaders. We recognize some really well-known people, around San Antonio, but we don't do it for anything in return other than just to say thank you, right? And so you can ask any of the ones that we have asked. We've not turned around and asked for anything or an expectation of anything, except for one thing, which is we want them to come sit and talk to our kids. Right. And so Mr. Winder last year, right, you were in there on a panel with him, right? How he came back, right? And so we want for him to turn around and pour back into our kids because it's those individuals that we want our kids to be able to see and to be around and to be able to ask questions, right? And so like last year during Dream Week on the panel that you're sitting on, what did we have? We had a young lady that wanted to go be a lawyer. Right. And so what she did, she came up and she got to spend 10 minutes talking to you about what your experience was at law school and what that's going to look like. Right. I can't do that for her. And so those are the reasons of why we have those events, because it's got to be more than just what's in a book or what's inside of the school. It's got to be what's inside of our community and how do we make our students stronger on that piece.
Yeah, I felt really humbled to be next to Howie and Marty, because I mean, he, with overcoming dyslexia, and then he's done so much for the community with reshaping the landscape, like literally.
Yeah.
And so like he was able to share just like how he just the stick to itiveness, and I think modeling that for the students is really wonderful.
His story on how he received when he went to college and the professor said, this is what you got to do to get a B. If you want to do an A, come see me later because it's going to be outside of the class in order to be able to get an A, right? You got to go be involved in the community. You got to write a letter to the paper, right? Things like that stuck with me, right? And so like it's just putting yourself around successful people and allowing them to speak and sit back and listen and turn around and say, yes, that's that's what we need to incorporate more of.
Yeah, yeah. No, it brings a lot to the student. I remember opportunities like that when I was in high school or as an undergraduate, and it really made an impression, and it helps the students have a broader horizon. That, I mean, there are extraordinary teachers on your campus, but the folks from the outside are bringing their stories, and yeah, and I love how the students interact. Like, they have that confidence, and they ask really good questions. They're used to asking questions, and I can see them processing and incorporating and really listening. Like, they're not going through the motions. Like they have fun. Everyone's having fun, but they also take it very seriously. Like, that this is really meaningful time, the time they spend on campus.
Yeah, and they shock you sometimes with what they have actually.
No, it's true. Well, and kids are way more observant than most adults give them credit for, and which I'm grateful for, because there are a lot of problems out there in the world, and I'm really counting on the next generation to try to sort some of these things out, because some of us older folks are kind of made
I
a mess
can
of
tell
things.
you that's one of my soapboxes too, and you know that, Inga, is I want for people to know we're in good hands. Like, don't believe what you read on the news. Come live it. Come see what kids do on a day in, day out basis. And what I'm going to tell you is, guys, they're doing so much more than what we did when we were in school. They're being asked to do more. They're doing it, and that's one of the things that you won't hear from us is the world's not getting worse. Right? It's we've got to turn around, and where are you going to focus your time, energy, and effort? And we've got some amazing students. We got some amazing families. And I'm looking forward to see what they do. Right. I'm looking, like, the proof is that our school's been around for about 7-8 years now. Right. We're looking at what happens 20 years from now. What are our students going to be doing 20 years from now? That's going to be when we really tell whether or not how successful we've been. But I know what I think they're going to be doing, and I'm sure they're going to exceed those expectations.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Well, on that note, let's share, like, how folks can get in touch with you all, what they need to do to get enrolled. So I think you mentioned earlier that the website is the go-to place, right?
Yeah. So the website, anfrankia.com, you go there, fill out an inquiry. We do have a couple of seats that are available at middle school right now. And the reason is that our 5th grade has 25 students. We try to get our 6th grade to 50 students. And so there's always a little bit of wiggle room inside of that space. And so there's a couple of middle school spaces that are available and open. We do have a waiting list for this year, but then we are opening up our open enrollment for lottery in November 1st. And you can actually go ahead and go on and fill out inquiries. Just know that just because you fill out the inquiry doesn't mean you're in, right? We have to go through the lottery process, and we honor that piece. And so January 12th, we'll actually conduct the lottery. And then within 2 days, we'll start reaching out to families and letting you know whether or not you were in the lottery or not. And then we'll go through that process. But the best way for that to start is at nfrankia.com. And fill out the inquiry.
Yeah. Yeah. And then in the blog post, we've got links to folks can follow on social media, because you guys are great about communicating and giving people an insight into what's happening on campus, because there's lots of unique things. There's always, like, people from the community coming on campus, and it's great to see. Like, so yeah, people can do the inquiry form. Anybody who's wondering, like, what's up, what does open enrollment mean, what does the lottery mean, I recommend joining the discussion group on Facebook, SA Charter Moms discussion group, because that's, we talk about that all the time. There's going to be lots of families asking the same questions. How does this charter school admission process work? But my message is it's worth it to explore your options, because then you'll find a place that suits your family and your kid, and you'll just be able to see them blossom. That might be Anne Frank, where they can do this this whole process.
And that's the thing that we appreciate, Inga, and I try to, every time I'm on, let you know how much we appreciate. Right, there's a lot of work that you do that makes our job a lot easier, and some of that is just connecting people, right, and having people go on and just ask simple questions, and then watching 15 people answer that question, right, and there's always times that I'm sure all of us turn around and go, well, why don't you call me instead? But but for the most part, right, like they're good, solid answers, and there's somebody's truth to whatever the answer is. And so we appreciate the fact that you connect people, that you provide that information, because it's you and a couple of other organizations that really allow for us to spit things out like lottery and open enrollment, because y'all are informing people of what those are without us having to go through and really educate that side. So thank you very much for that.
Well, I appreciate that y'all, help us update the enrollment guide, but you also give us the space for people in our group to have a dialogue, because I think through that dialogue, that's what gets people closer to the truth. They can, everybody's sharing their experience, and then that's way people can see that testimony and go, that's how you figure out, like, yeah, that's where I need that place. I need a place where, my kids got some room to stretch, and they're allowed to keep asking questions, because it's like, it's so natural for kids to do that. They just need adults who are supportive and keep encouraging them and listening.
Yeah. And that's, the only thing, if we lose intentionality, then call us on the carpet. Right. And that's the biggest part for us, is we want to be intentional. We want to be purposeful in what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that comes through. So the website, annefrankia.com, that's where folks can get more information, fill out the inquiry form, and get ready for open enrollment. It starts November 1st.
Yeah. The fact that I'm sitting here talking about enrollment for next year, you got to pause for a second.
It came up fast. No, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Just means I got another birthday coming up is all that means. So.
Yeah. I know that feeling. All right. Well, Justin, it's great to catch up with you, and I look forward to being back on campus soon, because both campuses are beautiful places.
Yes, ma'am. Well, we're looking forward to having you. So, and any family, again, if you're looking to come out, we encourage you, just come take a tour. We'd love to share our story with you. And so if you're watching and your kid's not interested in coming and you just want to know more about us, come take a tour. We'll share our story. Just go to annefrankia.com and we'll take care of you from there.
All right. Thanks, Justin. Take care.
All right.
Everyone, donate to Big Give.
Big give today.
That's right.
Everybody gives $1. Anybody that watched today, give $1, and we'll make a couple of dollars.
Sounds good. All right. Take care, Justin.
Uh.
All right.